Right, welcome back to you. Ryan Sands continues to be a leading name in ultra train running. His discipline and endurance shone through when he won last week's George Ultra Train 100-miler event. Sands joins us now via Zoom to tell us a bit about his latest victory. Ryan, good afternoon to you. We last spoke with you prior to the race. So firstly, a big congratulations to you on your achievement. And I do want to know from you, what was the event like and did you achieve what you set out to?
Yeah, good afternoon, Nicole, and thanks so much. Yeah, the event is part of the newly formed Ultra Trail Mont Blanc World Series. So it's they've partnered up with Ironman globally, and in order to qualify for the finals in Chamonix, which is kind of like the Olympics of trail running, I had to qualify via UTMB series race, and the George Ultra Trail or Mountain Ultra Trail is as newly formed part of the series. So yeah, winning the 100-mile race qualifies me for the finals on the 1st of September. So that was my goal. So yeah, really chuffed with how things went and to get my slot for the finals.
What were some of the most challenging routes of the trail for you?
Yeah, so the George area, they had a lot of rain in the build-up. So the trails were very wet and muddy, so it was very slippery. And on top of that, the trails there are generally very technical. The first 40 kilometers were yeah, extremely technical. We also started at 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon, so majority of the race actually ran through the night. And running in the dark always has its challenges. And then at the same time, from about 3 to 6 o'clock in the morning, I got extremely sleepy tired. So that always just yeah makes things a lot tougher mentally. It's really tough to keep going. But as soon as the sun rose, yeah, things got a lot better. But it was a very technical and challenging route.
Things always get better when the sun rises, Ryan. It definitely does. So, speaking about things
Yes.
getting mentally tough, I mean, you're obviously a professional athlete, and you know, I think sometimes we take for granted because you're a professional athlete that things are smooth sailing. But when it comes to ensuring that your mind is at the right space that it needs to be at all times, what do you do to ensure that you get them through an event like this?
Yeah, so a lot of people say like, how do you run 100 miles, which is 160 kilometers? I think the George race ended up being about 165 kilometers with just over 8,000 meters of elevation gain. So like mentally, that is very overwhelming. So I always break the race down into bite-sized chunks. So just focus on getting from one aid station to the next, which can be anything from 8 kilometers to 20 kilometers. And if it gets like very challenging, and then at times I'm just kind of literally focusing on doing 1 kilometer at a time or getting to the next tree or like next landmark. And it really just helps me break things down into bite-sized chunks and make it not feel so overwhelming. But at the same time, I also feel like if I set myself like the mini goals within the bigger goal of finishing the race, if I get to that landmark or I get to that aid station, I feel like I can almost pat myself in the back and I've achieved kind of one part of the goal, and then to keep going. And also, if I'm going through a really bad patch, and I get through a section, I always feel like then I'm starting afresh. And then other things like I think it's so important to try and stay mentally in a positive headspace, because you do go through a number of low moments
Yeah.
during 100 miles on any endurance event. And I always say it's the person that can manage their low moments the best that ends up being the most successful. So really trying to stay mentally positive is important, because I find if physically I'm going through a bad patch and then mentally I also go through like a bad patch, then it's really hard to get out of that. But generally, if you can stay in a kind of good headspace mentally, I always seem to be able to get out the other side.
Ryan, I think this is why you are one of the best in the world at what you do. You know, you've mentioned now staying positive and you've mentioned setting those mini goals. So it sounds like you definitely have the right steps, and that's why you won, because you definitely do. So very quickly before we go, because we are running out of time, speak to me about your training regime. And I ask you this because I think people think athletes all do the same thing. You all go to gym and that's what it is, and that's not true. So when it comes to a race like this,
Yes.
what are some of the things that you have to put in place in terms of your training regime, your eating plan and everything to ensure that you're good to go?
Yeah, so with each like big focus race, I always try and do quite specific training. So looking at the conditions, is it going to be like very mountainous? I've done races in the desert where it's very hot, or in other conditions, and focusing on what kind of challenges are going to come my way in the race, and then trying to train as specific as possible. But I guess in a nutshell, leading up to the George Mountain Ultra Trail. I did about 15 to 20 hours on average a week of running in the 8 weeks leading up, plus another 2 to 3 hours of kind of strength and mobility work. And then also some mental work, seeing a chiropractic, liner therapy, getting massages. So yeah, I'd say like on average, you probably spend about 30 hours a week kind of building up to a race like this. So it can be quite consuming. But then having said that, so I think after like a big event, it's really important to take some time off and to recover physically, but also mentally. I felt after the race, I bounced back quite well physically, but mentally it was quite taxing. So I feel I need a bit more rest on that side.
Ryan, thank you so much for that. We're going to have to leave it there for now. Once again, a big congratulations to you for your achievement, and we're going to catch up with you ahead of your next event, which, as you mentioned, is the 1st of September. That was Ryan Sands, and he's just gone ahead and he's won the George Ultra Trail 100 miler event. We'll have more